Personality profiling, personality analysis, behavior analysis, psychometrics, these are all professional terms to describe the way individuals react in a given set of circumstances, and of course the way they respond as well. It's a very, very useful system to learn and very simple to learn. There are many profiling systems around the world. Some have been around 70 or 80 years, even longer than that in a couple of cases. And they've all turned out to be pretty good, but effectively the one that's become most popular is known as the DISC system. It's easy to learn, easy to use, and it's very, very accurate. And when you're selling, what you really need is additional tools to help you come to some conclusions about the way you're going to move forward. And some are too complicated to allow you to do that very quickly. But the DISC system, which is, as I've said, is the most popular, allows you to draw conclusions much quicker. As we go through this module, you'll notice that a number of these attributes apply to yourself. From our point of view, though, when we're selling, look for the highest point and sell to that, because all of us have got one outstanding part of our personality that's pretty obvious to other people. Hopefully you'll be able to see what yours is early on as well. And if you can then adapt the way you sell to that particular profile, you will have a better success rate, you'll create rapport quickly, and your confidence level will be much higher. So what does DISC stand for? Well, D stands for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for compliance. And we've all got these attributes in us, but as previously mentioned, there's always one or 2 points higher than the rest, and if you can spot them early on, that's what you sell to. Let's just have a look at what they are, broken down into individual parts. The D is the dominant, strong-minded individual who asks direct questions and wants direct answers. More interested in facts than opinions. They want quick results and they tend to get on with things. Sometimes they jump to conclusions because of it, and that can be a weakness or it can be a strength if they're in a hurry. They're very direct, very, very positive and confident, and their body language is also very strong and solid. When they're looking at you, they tend to have a lot of eye contact, stare you straight in the eye, and do that perhaps 99% of the time. They're also not frightened of getting into conflict and wanting to sort something out. If you work with a D, you'll probably notice that they have a couple of small arguments almost every week. But on the other side of that is that they don't tend to bear a grudge. They're good with detail and paperwork. Now, what that means is they're efficient. They want efficiency around them. So if you're going to sell to a D, and let's supposing you are working to say a 30-minute visit or a 30-minute phone call, it's probably going to last about 20 minutes because you'll need to stick to the point. They tend to tell you that they're a D early on because their voice is a lot stronger and they want you to get on with it. Now, some people do that anyway, but a D will continue it all the way through the meeting. When you're selling to them, ask for the business. If they're not really interested at that point, they'll say so. And if you ask why, and they'll say the delivery times are wrong, we need it quicker than that, or they need something else added to it. If you can give them what they want, they'll change their views and say yes. So they're very black and white, on and off, but very binary in some ways. Very easy to read, good strong leadership, they take control of the situation. The I, the influencer, the persuader, they buy off people they like. Therefore, when you're with them, the conversation, instead of it being 30 minutes, might actually be 40 minutes because they're likely to wander off and talk about something that happened a couple of years ago, or a friend that did something similar, or a company that they used to deal with, and it becomes a lot warmer. And to most people, whilst the conversation goes on a little bit longer, they probably enjoyed that little bit more. But they're not very interested in small detail. They are interested in people that are interested in them as well as their company, and they tend to buy up people they think will suit them. So the way you would probably annoy an I is to actually not be interested when they wander off, to explain what they're on about. Sometimes I've seen people in sales bring them back to the point. Well, it's not a good idea with an I, because you might get back to the point, but the I wants to buy off somebody they like, as I've just mentioned. And if you're not really interested in them, you're probably not really interested in the company. You're just trying to sell things. So be prepared for the conversation to wander. The one thing you need to bear in mind is that you must ask the I for the order. Sometimes people don't because they've got on so well they expect to get the business. Well, the problem is if they get another phone call a few minutes later, a day or so later, whatever, from someone else selling the same sort of products or services, they'll be just the same with them. And the one that tends to win the order is the one that asks for it. So when I'm with an I and I can tell I enjoy the conversation, but I say, what do I need to do to close this today? Do I need an order number, or will a verbal do, so I can go back and get on to the office and get this sorted, and then we can sort the paperwork out tomorrow? That's when an I will make up their mind. It's a good point, and they are nice to do business with once you've made sure that you ask for the order. Their body language is a little bit more hands and arms. Their eye contact tends to be about 75% of the time. They tend to look up when they're trying to remember things. So their body language is a little bit more open. Their office is a little bit sometimes like Disneyland, with things stuck to monitors and knickknacks and personal possessions, because they like to work around a friendly environment. Next on the list is steadiness. Very high, steady people with a high S content in them tend to be a bit quiet, a little bit more laid back. They tend to think about things. You probably end up having to have a number of phone calls or a number of meetings before an S makes their mind up. And they can come across sometimes as indifferent, not really bothered whether or not they're going to proceed. But S's are not like that. They do that over everything they do because they're considerate. They think things through. Their body language, very quiet, very laid back, very little body movement. Their voice is very quiet as well, and their sentences are a little bit slower, and that's also one of these things that makes people think they're not quite so interested. The thing to bear in mind with an S is they're usually very clever. They take things in. One of the worst things you can do with an S is push. Because they're not speaking much, it's very easy to take over and try and sell to them. And of course, they're working to their time frame and you're working to your time frame. When you've left, it's quite possible they'll just forget who you are and never take your call again. Be prepared for the conversation to be more about people, because they're quite interested about the people that it's going to affect and the implementation of it. They're very people orientated. So take plenty of time, realize that they're a lot more interested than you think, realize that they're probably an S early on because of the quietness and the slowness of their voice. And finally on the list, the C, the compliant person. Somebody with a high degree of compliance sticks to all the rules. Somebody with a low degree of compliance doesn't stick to the rules. It's quite as simple as that. They are a little bit confusing to read because they come across the same as a D and an S. They have the body language of a D, quite serious, quite steery, but they think like an S in the same way as they like to work to the rules. In fact, the C probably even more so. Whilst the S conforms to the rules, the C likes the rules and will be looking for references from other people. If not totally satisfied, they will not make a decision until they've got all the details in. And that, in fact, can lead to extra time. Just a bit of advice: if you're sending a quotation to a C, make sure you get it checked for typos by somebody else, because they're usually very good with typing problems. Nice to deal with because they stick to the rules, and again, very loyal. But if you break outside of their rules, they'll cut you off and leave you that way. In conclusion, profiling is just a really useful tool, and if you add it to the other sales tools you've got, you'll be able to increase your hit rate and of course your understanding of the different type of people that you come up against. I hope you've enjoyed this module, and I look forward to meeting you in the next.